So brand marketing, the way that I describe it is like two roles. It's two big things. You are essentially creating the strategy and the vision and the message that you want to get to your consumer. You're thinking of like, what do I want to say to my consumer? And then how do I get that message to them? Okay, here's what I want that consumer to feel. Here's the message. Here's how I'm relating this product that I'm launching, but in an exciting, fun way that is relatable to the consumer, right? Then you work as a quarterback with all your cross-functional partners to bring that to life.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of How the Fuck Did You Get That Job? Joining us today is Cyntia Leo. She has worked at amazing brands that you've heard of like Disney, Urban Outfitters, and Nike. She currently leads brand for Urban Outfitters, and we're super excited to have her on the show. So Cyntia, how the fuck did you get that job?
Oh gosh, I think it's been a long journey, right? And so I just started at Urban Outfitters about 2 months ago. But I feel like the journey's been a long way. And so, should I start from the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking prior to clicking record, right? We were talking about your time at the New School, growing up, and what made the New School the right place for you, and what you were going to study?
Yeah, so the story starts when I was like 8 years old. My sister, I was born and raised in Washington Heights, and like when I was at that time, I didn't really know anything about the arts or like, media, theater. I didn't know that world. I really just knew what was around my four walls. My dad was an accountant and my mom was a teacher. And so the expectations, I have 3 older sisters, is that we were all gonna go and be accountants. And like, that is what the family was gonna do. Everyone.
Taxes are sexy.
So yeah, taxes, numbers, bookkeeping, that was literally, there was no openness for creativeness or like, it wasn't a thing that we did, right? And so my sister had gone into finance and she worked at Bloomberg. And as part of Bloomberg's like annual celebration of all their employees, they every year made a special occasion where the employees can bring family members to an occasion. And so this one year, my sister got 4 tickets to The Lion King on Broadway. And she was like, hey, do you want to go? I was like 8 or 9 years old at that point. I was like, yeah, I don't know what this is, but sure, I'll come with you. And so I went in and I just had this outer body experience. And I was like, I don't know what I just saw, but this was the most magical thing that I've ever seen in my entire life. And one day I'm going to work and I'm going to be on that stage. And like, that was the moment that I knew. I didn't know how, I didn't know what the jobs were, where the opportunities were, but I was like, I'm going to be on that stage one day and like, I'm going to work my entire life to get there. And so that kind of is what started my like career and passion from a creative standpoint. In high school I did dramas, I was acting, I did theater, I played the trombone, and then from there,
I'm a trumpet player, so same family.
Yeah, I was in marching band, and I kept telling people, I'm like, we were like the cool kids, like we played and like
at some schools, yeah,
at our school we were the cool kids. It was a lot of fun, but yeah, from there I was doing a lot of creative writing as well, and I thought that I was going to work in magazines. And so as I was thinking about college, I was like, what university is going to get me the closest to being able to write for magazines? That was my original dream. And so I applied to a bunch of schools and I got into the New School with a full scholarship, and they had this program around cultural studies and media studies, which, from the description, I was like, okay, I think this is the great opportunity. I'll be back in New York City. I can maybe get a job at a magazine, an internship. I'm going to do that. And so that's essentially how I started and why I went to the New School and started my career. And so from there, I had some funny job opportunities. My first internship / job was at Playgirl magazine. And I was a writer for them. So it was a little bit of a mixture.
When you told your accountant dad and teacher mom that you were going to Playgirl, what was the...
they were not happy. Yeah. They were like, what do you mean you're going to write for Playgirl magazine? And I was like, yeah, so there's like naked guys in it, and like, but it's okay. It's not in the office. It's like, and my parents were strict. Like they were strict growing up. They're, I'm half Dominican, half Chinese. So like, they're very traditional, strict parents, and they like did not understand what was happening. But luckily I'm the youngest of 4, and so I think by the time
you get,
they were like, get your college education. Like, do what you. We just need you to get a job.
How did that opportunity come about?
Oh gosh, honestly, I think I was just like looking for an internship on, at that point, probably through like the Village Voice, like one of the newspapers.
Sure.
And I was just looking for an internship and saw this and I was like, okay, I'm gonna apply. And so I interviewed and applied and started like within 3 days.
There you go. So from Playgirl to here, a lot has changed.
A lot has changed.
Right? You end up landing that full-time gig at Disney. Was that like a dream come true from Lion King to there?
Yeah. And so, yes, I ended up coming back. I moved to LA for a few years and I came back and I actually ended up walking into the same theater.
How was your LA dream, by the way?
Oh God, no, that like, I needed to come back to New York.
Okay.
Like LA wasn't
Next
for
chapter.
me. Yeah, I was like rewind. A great time. It was some great time off. Did a lot of cool stuff in that realm, but I needed to come back to New York. But so I started my first job at Disney. It ended up being in that theater where I saw Lion King.
Very cool.
A million
Full
years
circle.
ago. It was a full circle moment. And I remember, the first week or two, I was actually able to walk onto the stage and like be there and be like, oh God, I'm here. Like I've done it and I've made it and this is amazing. And so there I did special events and, worked on like Mary Poppins, Lion King, Newsies. And so it was incredible. And so for the first few years, I was like, I think this is it. And then slowly I was just like, oh, but I'm missing something. Like
What did you feel like you were missing?
So I grew up in theater and I was a theater kid, but I also grew up playing basketball and I was an athlete. And so I, was playing basketball at the time in New York City in an all boys league, like it wasn't like a professional, but it was like a amateur,
Sure.
Run around. But more and more, I just felt like I loved being part of that. I was in special events. I loved being part of like bringing an amazing experience to life. I love being able to connect to the consumer in that sense. But I was like, I miss sports. Like I was, standing there on the water cooler at that time, and everyone was talking about their latest Broadway show, and I was like, hey, did anyone watch the Knicks game last night? Like, did anyone see the score? Like, that's great, and so I just realized at that point that like, it's important for me to like make that next jump, and I really wanted to go back and be in sports.
And how did Nike, Nike is sports,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you went from Disney, which is a market name, to another. What about Nike was like just drew you in?
I mean, so I do this thing every year. I make a 5-year plan, a chart for myself, a little bit of a vision board. And I like to do it yearly because it helps me reassess and make decisions, right? And so as part of that, I was like, if I want to work in sports, what are my top brands, right? Like I want to be in this world of marketing. I want to be in this world of event marketing at that point. And Nike is there was a moment in time and that I knew I've always loved the brand. I grew up wearing it. But there was this one commercial that they had dropped, this ad, and it was like, find your, oh gosh, why am I missing the name? It was like, I'll remember the name, but it was in 2012, it was their Olympic ad. And then there was this young boy who was a little bit overweight and he was running down, find your greatness. I
know the ad you're talking about.
Yes,
Yeah.
and he's running down the street and it really just signified that moment of like, everyone's it's just so inclusive. Everyone's an athlete. Like it is about powering up your journey. And I realized at that point, I was like, our values aligned, right? And like, this is a brand and a company and a message that I want to get after and I want to make sure that I'm pursuing every day. And so, yeah, it was one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, that's so awesome that you had that opportunity and then you were there for 10 years,
10
right?
years, yeah.
So something must have gone right for you to stay that long.
Yeah.
You started on the event side of things.
Yep.
What, let me back up. Mm-hmm. You started on the event side of things. What was like some of the first events that you were managing and working on?
Yeah, I've had the wildest experience at Nike. I've worked on, the first iteration of the Virgil Off-Whites and really launching all of the Off-White campaign. And so I had moments where, I'm literally in the room standing there with Virgil and a few other folks and like talking about the experiences, the events for that launch campaign. One of my favorite moments, I think, of my career is we did Steal the Street. So we dropped a tennis court on the Meatpacking District, and we had Serena Williams, Maria Sharapova, Agassi, Sampras, like every tier 1 tennis athlete just come out and play tennis on the street.
Very
and
cool.
like, there's a picture of me on Twitter somewhere where I'm standing there briefing the greatest of greats,
Telling them what to do.
telling them what to do. And so it's me, and you see the back of me with my hands like this, because I speak a lot with my hands. And then, you know, it's like Maria, Serena Williams, Sampras, Agassi, like everyone. And I'm just like,
Were you nervous at all? Or
oh
no?
yeah, I was like crying inside. Like I was like, I'm stuttering and I'm actually doing this. But I kept it cool, but I was so nervous. And I was like, here are all these amazing athletes that I look up to. And I'm having this weird out of body moment where I'm like giving you guys direction and like putting on a tennis show for all these kids that are screaming outside. Like, that's just like, I was like, this is like magic. This is the stuff that I want to do. So yeah, I've worked on a lot of insane things like that. I think another crazy moment is I worked on the project launching the Jordan Neymar collection, and like I got to meet Michael Jordan, and just like,
Very cool.
he was the nicest person, you know, just like really have like some time with Jordan. And you know,
Was your husband just super jealous?
oh yeah, I was texting him the entire time. I was like, I just hugged Michael Jordan. I'm sitting next to him right now, you know. I'm like wanting to get a picture but couldn't. He was very, very jealous. I was like, this is a little bit, growing up playing basketball, it's a dream come true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you end up working your way up to brand marketing director there. What did you do that was right? What would you contribute your success to working up the ranks of Nike?
Yeah, I think it's a few things. So, you know, at Nike, big ideas get rewarded and you know, out of the box thinking. And so I wasn't afraid ever to be like, hey, this might be the brief, we can do it this way, but honestly, I think that this is a bigger idea. Let's blow this out. Let's think of it in a bigger and better way. And so I was constantly pushing, like, let's relook at the strategy. Let's think about the story we're trying to tell. Let's think about how we're connecting with that consumer and pushing it to the next level. And one day I had a conversation, you know, with one of my mentors at Nike, and she was like, hey, have you ever thought of going into brands? And I was just like, well, no, but I love being able to connect with the consumer and see these things come to life. And then she's like, yes, but then you can help actually build that strategy.
And what is brand? I know what brand means, but I'd love to hear what you think brand means, especially when in that kind of role.
Yeah. So brand marketing, the way that I describe it is that you are two roles. It's two big things. You are essentially creating the strategy and the vision of how you want to, and the message that you want to get to your consumer, right? And so you're thinking of like, what do I want to say to my consumer? And then how do I get that message to them? And then you work as a quarterback with all your cross-functional partners to bring that to life, right? And so I'll come in, and I went from like a functional partner as events to, you know, that more quarterback role. Of really coming in and being like, okay, here's what I want that consumer to feel. Here's the message. You know, here's how I'm relating this product that I'm launching, but in an exciting, fun way that is relatable to the consumer, right? And then who are all my cross-functional partners that come in to help connect to that consumer in the right type of way. So you're working with your experiential team to be like, this is how the experience should come to life. You're working with the social team and the creative team to be like, this is the content we want to build. This is the narrative we want to have. You're working with your paid team to say like, what are the right channels? Like, is it Instagram? Is it TikTok? Should we partner with a magazine, et cetera? How
do you go about managing creatives?
Creatives are my partners in crime. Like, I think I need to hold hands. Like, it's really, I love being really in the room holding hands. I'm half like data and science and half art. And so I feel like I like to come in with a point of view and a strategy, and then I want to get in a room with one of my creatives and be like, let's tear it apart, let's throw it against the wall, and then let's build it back up together, right? I've never loved a relationship of like, I'm against, like we're fighting with a creative or whatever, you know, like that. There's always gonna be that push and pull, but I think the best work is when you can land somewhere that you both feel super proud of, both teams, and like everyone's bought into it.
Yeah, I fully agree. What's a time with working with creatives or just some sort of campaign where you turned a whoops into a wahoo, is what I like to call it, to be a corny dad?
Yeah, I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know.
Something that went wrong that ended up paying dividends.
I'm trying to think what has gone wrong. I mean, there's been pieces of like things that have gone wrong.
Whether it be at Nike or you just started at Urban.
Yeah, Urban's super new, so I think I don't have anything there. Oh gosh. I mean, I think that like, and over 10 years, there's a lot of parts of the plans that do not make it to fruition or like don't actually get executed the way that you think they should be executed. There are parts of events where you're just like, we're just gonna hide this, and like that event didn't go well and you just like shove it under the carpet and you highlight the stuff. So I don't think there's ever been anything like, God, that campaign was failed, right? Like I think there's things that we were like, ooh, that probably didn't work, or like we totally forgot this element. And I would say for that, it's like 90% of the time your consumer doesn't even realize. And so it's okay. Yeah. Exactly. I personally also am like, I'd rather take the risk than not. And so, yeah.
You talked about your 5-year plan that you always break into. You ended up spending 10 years at Nike.
Yeah.
Was it in the plan, the 5-year plan, to find a brand like Urban, and what were you looking for?
Yeah, so it's interesting because once you're in the Nike world, it's a little bit hard to figure out what you want to do next, right? And so I had a few different roles at Nike. I went from experiential, then I went to brand management. And as part of my 5-year plan, I was like, I really think that I want to try the like GM route. Like, is that a place? I love the business side, so like, do I want to do that? I spent a year working in digital. But as part of that, I worked on a lot of work of like reinventing Nike Women, which I really loved. And that for me felt a little bit of like a startup vibe within a big company, right? And so I worked on like, how should we start talking to women? How should we reposition Nike from a female perspective? What's the right type of messaging, the tone, et cetera? And so I loved that body of work that we did. And it just got me so excited. And so as I was thinking about the next steps, I did that 5-year chart and I was like, what do I want from a company? And so there's something that I do as part of the 5 years, and where, I have a purpose statement that I think about every single time. What is my purpose? Why do I want, and for me, my purpose is really, I want kids that look like me to realize that there's a world outside for them, and like, you can do whatever you want to do, right? Like you just need to step out and really think about it and reach out for it. And then I also want to make sure that any brand that I go to aligns with like my personal values, right? Like if I don't consume the product, I don't think I can sell it. And so while I was thinking about the next job, it's so easy. I'm fortunate enough that I had a lot of folks reach out to me via LinkedIn, because of my tenure at Nike. And for a second, I was like starting taking interviews for places that I went really far down an interview process with a brand. I won't even say it, but like, I just like wouldn't consume their product, right? Like I was just like, and then halfway through the interview, I had to stop and be like, wait, I'm actually not interested because your brand like doesn't necessarily align with like my values, right? And so I have to constantly do that exercise because I'm like, I'm not going to be happy if this brand doesn't align with my values, and if the job doesn't align with like what excites me, my energy drivers. So I do this process where I think about my energy drivers, I think about my values, I think about my purpose statement, and then I went out and I was like, what brands can I do that with, right? And like what brands will help, will make me happy in those 3 senses. And so when Urban Outfitters reached out, I was like, oh, it's a no-brainer. I grew up with this brand. This brand, when I was in college, I lived on in Union Square, and like that store on, I think it's on 14th and like 4th or 3rd, was like my second home. Like when I didn't have friends, I would walk in there in the beginning and I would just spend hours just like discovering things and looking at all the cool elements and the clothes, and it just felt a little bit like home to me. Like I was just like, it's part of my values, and I feel like it's the right place to go.
Yeah, and that aligns perfectly too. And I'm sure they loved hearing that throughout the job process. What were they looking for you to accomplish there? I feel like Urban's got a very strong brand currently, but obviously there's always room to build on it.
Yeah, I think it's really about bringing Urban Outfitters to the next generation, right?
I feel like Urban has such a great brick and mortar presence and always have. Like, are you guys thinking about doubling down there, or how do you view that versus e-com?
Yeah, I mean, we're still in a lot of conversation. E-com is always going to be super important. Our consumer shops there, but also we're relooking at like brick and mortar is also really important. We have 210 stores, and really like this consumer wants IRL. They want to come in and feel the brand and see the brand. We're also seeing a ton of insights that this consumer is starting their journey and discovery online, but then they want to go into store, right? And really feel the store, be part of the store. And so I wouldn't say from a percentage wise, we're going to focus more on one versus the other, but it is a very, very important part of our journey. And we want to make sure that we are, you know, going back a little bit of our heritage of like what that Urban Outfitters experience was when you walked into the store, but also making sure that like we're constantly serving them from an e-com perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And in your head, what's next for Urban?
A lot of great things. You know, we are excited. We have some really fun plans. I can't fully talk about some of the things,
Sure.
but like we just have some really excited brand marketing coming out. You know, we are really thinking about how to connect again back with our consumer in exciting ways. We have some fun, playful ads that we're thinking about, but not like traditional ads.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the roadmap that we've laid out for the next year. I think that it's going to be reinvigorating again. I think that like, you know, we just, again, I think we want to try some things. We want to be unexpected. You know, we're going to test and learn a few things, and some things are going to pop off and some things might fail, and that's okay. Like, yeah.
And we're excited to see what you do next. I love Urban. This is actually Urban. I was actually thinking in the middle of the podcast, but nice. I'd love to touch on, you know, your experience as a mixed woman in a leadership role. What advice would you give to some, like a little girl or, you know, somebody who's in college who is a woman and wants to reach the ranks and grow in their career?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, being a woman of color, a mixed woman, it's hard sometimes, right? And I think I'm very fortunate that I have other women of color who've paved a lot of ways for me, but I think it's still a difficult role, right? And it's a hard place, you know, how assertive should you be? What is the stereotype? You know, especially around, you know, Black Lives Matter and all of those things, it's like, a lot of those emotions came out of like, God, am I bringing my true self to work every day, right? Like, do I have to play a character to fit into this corporate environment? And so it's a hard juxtaposition to like get after. And so I would say one of my advice is like, be true to yourself, right? Like, you have to be true to yourself. If a corporation or a brand isn't okay with that, then that's probably not the place for you, right? Sure. Hold on to your voice. Your voice, your point of view is super important. And so make sure you're holding on to your voice, but make sure you're backing that up with strategy and data, right? And so like, you know, everyone has an opinion, but a well thought out point of view is really what's gonna win, right? And then keep networking. Like, it is half of the jobs and the doors that I've gotten into have been through other women of color. And I would say that, you know, 70 to 80% of the opportunities that I've had were other women of color who were either mentoring me, who were introducing me to the right person, who was opening the right door for me. So it's, you know, like keep networking and having those conversations, because, you know, I feel like as a whole, we're all looking out for each other, right? Like, yeah, I would say that. And then I think the last thing I would say is like, once you come into a leadership role, I think that was probably one of the hardest transitions that I've made, right? And so like, there is a big step in your career when you jump from being a manager and you're friends with everyone, and then you're put into a leadership role, right? And so I would say, think about what your leadership profile wants to be, what you want that profile to be.
How would you describe your style?
So I think for me, I'm empathetic, but I'm a hard worker. I expect a lot from the team, but I also am like, I want to have fun, right? And I want this to be a collaborative environment. I'm a big, big believer in collaboration. And so I don't love what it's like, you can't be the hero. Like, it's about the team. And I think that's a little bit of like my athlete mentality of like basketball mentality. Like, you don't win a championship by like being just as MVP. Like you need a full team to win the championships. And so, yeah, I have a very big in collaboration team. I'm very empathetic. Like I don't want to take ourselves too seriously. Like let's have fun while we're doing the work, but like let's get the work done.
Absolutely. And lastly, we've talked a lot about your career, but what's something you're proud of in your personal life?
Oh, so I have a 3-year-old daughter. She's amazing. She is just my world. I think she's super smart and she just is like so witty. And so I'm really proud of her. I love being a working mother and in this, and showing her like, there are days I struggle with it. So like there are days where I'm like, oh, like I'm such a type A, like I want to be the best at everything that I'm like, am I being a great mom and a great career person, right? But I'm really proud of her. I think she's great, and like I work every day on making sure I'm finding that right balance of like being a good mom, being there for her, and then getting after my career, my work, and what I want to do as well.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think that's a great place to start tying up our interview and enter the quick question round.
Okay.
Amazing. Before we enter our quick question round, got to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Open Fortune. Never in my life did I think that I'd be recording a podcast sponsored by a fortune cookie company, interviewing amazing people on their career lives and personal journeys. Let's crack open one of these bad boys and see if our fortunes have anything to do with our conversation.
Should I open one?
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Oh, never mind tomorrow. Today is the day.
There you go.
I love that.
Who you got in the back?
I have careers that pays. San Jacinto College.
There you go. Mine's bars. It's your future is an unwritten book. Write a bestseller. That's a lot of pressure, though.
Yeah.
Also, San Jack.
Okay.
So shout out. All right. Person you'd most want to sit down to dinner with, dead or alive?
The Obamas.
Favorite city in the world?
New York City, of course.
Also, Michelle or Barack. You gotta pick one. It's person.
Oh, it's one person?
Yeah.
Fuck. I'm gonna go Michelle. I'm gonna go Michelle. Okay. Yeah, Michelle's it.
More afraid of heights or spiders?
Neither.
There you go. No fears.
No.
Is it okay to sleep with socks on?
No, never.
That's okay.
Unless you're sleeping outside and camping.
Yeah. Favorite rom-com?
Oh my God. I'm not a big rom-com person.
Favorite movie?
League of Their Own.
Great one. Favorite new school grad?
New school grad, like a person?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Say yourself.
Myself.
Yeah. Would you ever live abroad? If so, where?
Yes, Amsterdam. Dying to move.
Yeah, Amsterdam's the best.
Yeah, it's so nice.
Is Santa real?
Yes, of course.
Very real.
Very real.
In 40 years, what will people be nostalgic for?
Oh, God. I feel like they'll probably be nostalgic for like real books. Actual paper-bound books.
That's a good one. Mm-hmm. I feel like people already are a little nostalgic.
I'm a little nostalgic.
Yeah,
I'm also nostalgic for CDs.
Yeah.
And mixtapes.
Favorite women's basketball player?
Ooh, right now it's so hard because you have like, I really like some of the college players. So Caitlin Clark is amazing. I really like Angel Reese. I like her attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say them.
I'm super excited for them to get to the WNBA.
Same.
I'm a Liberty season ticket holder.
So good. I love Sabrina. Sabrina's great. Yeah. But like Caitlin is like.
She's next level. Yeah. I did you caught it, but they had a great episode on her on the Daily.
Yeah.
I don't know if you listened to it.
Yeah, 2 days ago.
Yeah, it was great.
I know. I'm like, I wonder, did they announce yet if she's gonna?
Well, yeah, she's going pro.
Yeah.
So like,
I'm excited for like I hope that brings energy and money to.
Well, that's what they were talking about, right? Like, we'll see. But the first Liberty game is against the Fever, which they have the number 1 pick. So they're going to draft.
What's her name?
Caitlin Clark.
But what's the other? There's another girl that's a number 1 player also. On UConn.
Oh, Paige. But she's not gonna go number 1. Like no, because she tore ACL like 2 or 3 times.
Right.
So she's unbelievable, but she's not gonna like Caitlin Clark. Like they and we'll cut this part, but like the Fever, they announced their season ticket and single game offering the same, like 20 minutes after Caitlin Clark announced that she's going pro. Like they're drafting her, and she's like Midwest through and through.
Yeah,
like,
I heard the ticket prices like went.
I mean, I'm gonna make about one full ticket on the season back on the first game.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
It's crazy.
That's crazy
because of Caitlin Clark, and it's the opener, but it's nuts.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see.
I'm excited to watch her. I hope. I'm like, finally the WNBA also pay those players for the love of God.
Yeah, well, it's nuts too, because if you look at the viewership, it was like right when the league launched, it was like massive, like huge, like 10 times the following than it has now even, and then it just
dropped.
Yeah, but it's slowly going up, so we'll see. What's the worst advice you've ever been given?
Oh God, I've gotten some very just play the game. Don't swim across against the stream. Play the game.
In one sentence, how would you sum up the internet?
Oof. Useful, necessary, but IRL is where it's at.
Who's somebody you think should hop on this podcast?
I mean, God, I'm gonna go back to my negative. I'm like, Phil Knight is amazing.
Get him on.
Get him on. I know. I would love to hear from like.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm like. I mean, I've read his book and everything, but I think that he's really
I'm still
amazing.
Gonna reach you, Dog. I've been sent it and recommended it so many times.
It's so good.
And talk to me about the next 5-year plan. What do you got?
Yeah. Okay. So I feel
docket?
like I want to do some really amazing things at Urban Outfitters. I'm really excited about where we're gonna go. And then I think at some point we're gonna have to decide if we're gonna stay in Philly, stay not. I have like a little vision board of some other brands that I've like thought about in the future.
And being a mom.
Yeah. I know. Well, so this is the crazy thing, and this is probably personal, but I actually want more folks talking about this, but we're in the process of IVF, and so we are in our like 3rd or 4th round. And so 5-year plan is to have another child.
Amazing.
And so I feel like that's like such a it's like the weirdest secret that's kept in a lot of corporate worlds where like, you know, I've had a few conversations and like I went to my boss when I was walking out, I was like, oh no, I'm having an IVF transfer. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. Like he didn't know how to react. And I was like, this is something that women go through in corporations, and like they're, you know, it's.
I was talking to the head of brand for the Liberty, and they were saying that it's interesting because they want the players to start talking about that, which they should, because then it normalizes it. If Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Ionesco are talking about it, then why everybody can talk about it. So it shouldn't be as taboo as it is. So I appreciate you bringing it up on this podcast.
Yeah, I think I'm a very big advocate in that sense, and I'm like, I think all of that is really hard, especially in going back to your question, and I know we're trying to wrap, but going back to your question of like being a woman in this industry, I'm like, you know, before I had my child about 4 years ago, like I had a miscarriage. And I was in the office in the morning. I left my stuff. I went to my doctor's appointment. He told me at that moment, like, you know, you're having a miscarriage. And then I was gonna go back to work. And I literally was in an Uber back. And I was like, I don't think I can go upstairs right now. Like I'm actually, but like, how do you like, it's just such a, because no one at that point knows that you're pregnant. Yeah. Because it's so early, you know, I was like 12 weeks at that point. So you're like, no one knows, but it's also this really weird, emotional, like sad time.
Who do I share this with? It's like your boss probably shouldn't be the first person you call.
Right. And so I had to call my coworkers, and I was like, one of the girls that works for me at that time, and I was like, can you bring my stuff down? I'll call my boss later, you know? And then fast forward a million years later, like even as I interviewed for jobs, it's like one of the questions I ask now where I'm like, what is your IVF benefits, because it's a huge thing, and I'm in the process of going through that right now, and it's just, you know, I think people are caught off guard where I'm like, hey, it's part of your benefit package. Like I was fortunate Nike has an amazing benefit package, and so does Urban Outfitters, but it was one of the questions that I asked in the interview process, and I think, you know, people aren't like used to that, I guess.
Yeah. But and that's why we're gonna both move to Amsterdam.
Yes, where it's free.
Exactly.
But
thank you for sharing it.
Yeah.
And it is super important to put a light on it. And I hope that, and I'm sure that Urban's a good, good spot to like have everything go down there. And yeah, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing.
Of course.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Cyntia, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. This was
and telling your
awesome.
story.
Yeah, no, I'm glad.
Great.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah,
This
of
was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Cool.